The city lights blurred through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the conference room, casting long shadows across the empty chairs. Victoria Hayes sat alone at the head of the table, her fingers hovering over her laptop keyboard, frozen. An hour had passed. She hadn't typed a single word. The cursor blinked on the blank screen, mocking her with its steady rhythm. She exhaled slowly, frustration tightening her jaw, her perfectly composed CEO mask beginning to crack. Jackson Reed noticed the light still on as he passed by. He stopped, glanced at his watch. 9:47. She'd been in there since he'd left at 6. He knocked softly on the glass door. "Miss Hayes, you okay?" Victoria looked up, and for a split second, he saw something he'd never seen before. Vulnerability. Raw and unguarded. She laughed, but it came out hollow. "I don't know how to write this," she admitted, gesturing at the screen. "I feel ridiculous." Jackson stepped inside, concern pulling him closer. "Write what?" Victoria turned the laptop toward him. The screen displayed a dating app profile, completely blank, every field empty. Just the cursor blinking in that first box. "What makes you unique?" "I'm a CEO who can negotiate billion-dollar deals," she said, her voice tight with self-deprecation. "But I can't describe myself for a dating app. How pathetic is that?" Jackson stood there, taking in the scene. Victoria Hayes, 35 years old, brilliant. The youngest CEO in her firm's history. She'd turned a struggling marketing company into an industry titan in just 3 years. She commanded boardrooms full of men twice her age without flinching. She was stunning, though she never seemed to notice, always too focused, too driven, too locked into work mode. But right now, sitting in this empty conference room with city lights painting her face in gold and shadow, she just looked lonely. She'd been single for 3 years. Jackson knew because he'd been her executive assistant for 2 of those years, and in that time, he'd never once seen her go on a date, never heard her mention anyone, never watched her face light up at a text message. He'd heard the story, though. The ex-fiancé who'd left her for someone less intimidating. The words had circulated through the office like poison. Too successful, too focused, too much. As if loving someone powerful was a burden instead of a gift. The board had been pressuring her lately. Work-life balance, they called it. Code for "you're making us uncomfortable with how alone you are." So she'd finally given in, downloaded the app, stared at the screen, and realized she had no idea how to be a person outside of this building. Jackson hesitated, then pulled out the chair beside her. "Want help?" Victoria blinked, surprised. "You?" He smiled, a little sad, a little self-aware. "I'm not exactly an expert either, but maybe 2 heads are better than 1? She studied him for a moment, then nodded, something like relief softening her features. "Please." Jackson Reed was 33, though some days he felt decades older. He'd been a rising marketing executive once, on track to follow Victoria's path, until his wife Sarah got sick. Cancer. Aggressive. Gone within 8 months. He'd stepped back from everything, restructured his life around their daughter Mia, who was 6 now and looked so much like her mother it hurt. He still wore his wedding ring, couldn't bring himself to take it off, even 4 years later. He'd taken the assistant position because it was stable, predictable, allowed him to leave at 6 to pick up Mia from after-school care. Victoria had never once made him feel small for the choice, never treated him like he was less than, because he answered phones and managed schedules instead of running campaigns. She asked about Mia, remembered her birthday, let him bring her to the office on snow days. They had an easy rapport, the kind built on genuine respect and something deeper, friendship. Real friendship that transcended the boss-employee boundary. And if Jackson had quietly admired her for months, well, that was his secret. She was Victoria Hayes, and he was just the guy who brought her coffee and kept her calendar organized. Not in her league, not even close. Before we continue, if you believe love can be found in the most unexpected places, subscribe to Love is Kindness. Now, Have you ever realized you had feelings for someone you thought was out of reach? Comment below and let us know where you're watching from. Jackson pulled the laptop closer, scrolling through the prompts with a focus that felt almost clinical, like he was reviewing a contract instead of helping his boss find love. "What makes you unique?" he read aloud. Victoria stared at the screen, her mind blank, her confidence evaporating. "I don't know," she said quietly. "I run a company. I work 80-hour weeks. I'm good at my job. That's not unique, that's just sad." Jackson's fingers hovered over the keys, then he started typing. "You remember everyone's coffee order," he said, his voice steady. "Not just mine. Everyone's. The interns. The night cleaning staff. You donated your entire Christmas bonus to the Children's Hospital last year. Anonymous. You thought no one knew, but I process your accounts. And you cry at dog adoption commercials. I've seen you wipe your eyes in your office when you thought no one was looking." Victoria stared at him, her breath catching in her throat. "How do you know that?" Jackson didn't look up from the screen. "I pay attention." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning neither of them was ready to name. Victoria's chest tightened, something warm and terrifying spreading through her ribs. No one had paid attention to her like that in years, maybe ever. Next prompt. Photos. Victoria pulled up her phone, scrolled through her camera roll. Corporate headshots. Conference stages. Boardroom presentations. A few blurry shots of her standing in front of company logos. Jackson leaned in, studied them, then shook his head gently. "These don't show who you are." Victoria's frustration flared, defensive. "Because I don't know who I am outside this office," she snapped, then immediately regretted it. Her voice softened, cracked. "My ex said I was married to my work, that I didn't have room for anything else. Maybe he was right. Maybe this is all I am." Jackson finally looked at her, really looked at her, his eyes holding hers with an intensity that made her pulse quicken. "He was wrong," Jackson said firmly. "You're just afraid to let anyone see the real you, because every time you have, someone told you it wasn't enough, or it was too much. But that's not your failing, Victoria. That's theirs." The air shifted. Victoria felt exposed, like he'd just peeled back every layer of armor she'd spent 3 years building. They went back to the profile, filling in boxes, crafting sentences, but Jackson grew quieter with each question, his answers shorter, his hand slower on the keyboard. Then they reached the final prompt. "What are you looking for?" Victoria thought about it, the weight of the question pressing down on her. "Someone who sees me," she said softly. "Not the CEO, not the success, not the money or the title, just me." Her voice was barely a whisper. "Does someone like that even exist?" Jackson's hands went completely still on the keyboard. The cursor blinked, once, twice, 3 times. "Yes," he said, his voice so quiet she almost didn't hear it. "He does." Their eyes met, and the world narrowed to just the two of them in that conference room with the city lights blurring outside. Victoria's breath caught, her heart hammering against her ribs. "Jackson," she whispered. He pulled back like he'd been burned. "I'm sorry," he said quickly, standing, the chair scraping against the floor. "That was inappropriate." He turned toward the door, his shoulders tense, his jaw tight. "I should go." But Victoria stood too, her voice stopping him before he reached the handle. "Wait." Jackson froze, his back to her. "Why did you help me with this?" she asked, her voice shaking. "Really? Why?" Jackson's hand gripped the door handle, his knuckles white. He didn't turn around. His voice, when it came, was raw. "Because watching you look for someone else was killing me." The confession landed between them like a grenade. He finally turned, his eyes meeting hers, and she saw everything he'd been hiding. The longing, the fear, the certainty that he wasn't enough. "But I'm your assistant," he continued, his voice breaking. "I'm a single dad. I'm not enough for someone like you." Victoria crossed the distance between them in 3 steps. "Someone like me?" she asked, her voice steady now, challenging. Jackson swallowed hard, his wedding ring catching the light as his hand fell from the door. Someone brilliant, successful, who deserves someone on her level. Victoria stepped closer, close enough that he could see the tears gathering in her eyes. "And you think you're not?" "Jackson," Victoria said, her voice steady despite the tears threatening to spill. "For 2 years, you've brought me coffee, exactly how I like it. Extra foam, no sugar, a dash of cinnamon I never asked for but somehow you knew I'd love. You know when I need silence and when I need someone to talk to. You never once made me feel like I had to be smaller, quieter, less ambitious to fit into your world." Jackson's throat tightened. "Because you shouldn't have to be," he said simply, like it was the most obvious truth in the world. Victoria's voice shook. "My ex left because he couldn't handle my success. He said I made him feel inadequate. That loving me was exhausting. But you," she paused, her eyes searching his, "you celebrate it. You've never once asked me to dim my light so you could feel brighter. That's not nothing, Jackson. That's everything." Something shifted in Jackson's chest, a wall he'd built 4 years ago beginning to crack. But before he could speak, Victoria reached past him and closed the laptop. The screen went dark. Jackson blinked, confused. "What are you doing?" She looked up at him, her composure gone, replaced by something raw and brave. "I'm done looking for someone when the person I want has been right here." The words hit him like a physical force. "Victoria, I'm not," he started, then stopped, his mind racing. "I haven't dated since my wife. I have a daughter. I'm not in your world. I don't go to galas or charity events or whatever it is successful people do. I leave at 6 to pick up Mia from after-school care. I make dinosaur-shaped pancakes and fall asleep during animated movies. That's my life." Victoria stepped even closer, close enough that he could see the gold flecks in her eyes. "You are my world," she said, her voice fierce. "You have been for months. I just didn't let myself see it. I told myself it was inappropriate, that you were my assistant, that you probably still loved your wife too much to ever see me. But Jackson, you're the person I look for when I walk into a room. You're the one I want to tell when something good happens. And when something bad happens, you're the first person I wish was there." Jackson's hand moved unconsciously to his wedding ring, twisting it the way he did when he was nervous or conflicted or trying to hold himself together. "I don't know if I'm ready," he whispered. "It's been 4 years, but some days it feels like yesterday. And Mia, she's only 6. She barely remembers her mom. What if I mess this up? What if I'm not ready and I hurt you?" Victoria's expression softened, and she reached out, her hand covering his, stilling the anxious motion. "Then we'll go slow," she said gently. "Jackson, you bring Mia to work sometimes. You know what I see when you do? I see a man who rebuilt his entire life around love, who chose his daughter over his career without hesitation, who shows up every single day even when it's hard. That's not enough. That's everything." Jackson's defenses crumbled. Tears he'd been holding back for what felt like years finally broke free, silent but undeniable. Victoria smiled, vulnerable and hopeful, and terrified all at once. "So," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "why not date me instead?" Jackson stared at her, emotions warring across his face. Fear, hope, longing, grief. Finally, his voice rough, he asked, "Are you sure? Really sure? Because once we cross this line, I can't go back to just being your assistant. I won't be able to pretend I don't feel this." Victoria's eyes shimmered. "I've never been more sure of anything." Jackson's hands moved slowly, deliberately, to his wedding ring. He slid it off, held it in his palm for a long moment, his thumb tracing the worn gold band. "She'd want me to be happy again," he said quietly, more to himself than to Victoria. "She'd want me to let myself live." He slipped the ring gently into his pocket, then looked up. And for the first time in 4 years, he looked unburdened. "Okay," he said. "Let's try." But he didn't kiss her. Not yet. That would come later, when they were ready, when the weight of what they were starting had settled into something real. Instead, Jackson held out his hand, formal and a little awkward, but honest. "Hi," he said, a tentative smile breaking through. "I'm Jackson Reed, and I'd very much like to take you to dinner." Victoria took his hand, tears finally spilling over, and laughed through them. "Hi," she said, "I'm Victoria Hayes, and I'd love that." 6 months later, Victoria's office looked different, softer. A photo sat on her desk now, not a corporate headshot, but a candid shot of her, Jackson, and Mia at the park. All three of them laughing, Mia's arms thrown around both their necks. Jackson walked in with her morning coffee, set it down, and kissed her forehead like it was the most natural thing in the world. On the wall behind her desk, next to her framed achievements, hung a child's drawing. 3 stick figures holding hands. Above them, in Mia's careful 6-year-old handwriting, the words "My family." Sometimes, Victoria thought, watching Jackson leave with a smile that still made her heart skip, the person you're looking for isn't a stranger across a screen. Sometimes they've been beside you all along, waiting for you to see them. And when you finally do, everything falls into place. If this story reminded you that love can be found in the places you least expect, subscribe to Love is Kindness for more stories that celebrate the beauty of unexpected connection. Now we want to hear from you. Have you ever realized someone you knew was the one you were looking for all along? Comment below. Let us know where you're watching from, and rate this story on a scale of 0 to 10. Did Victoria and Jackson's journey touch your heart? We'd love to know.